Hello and welcome to another 5-man dungeon guide. So today we're taking a look at Skyreach, and this one is a tough one. There's a large number of trash mobs in here, and there's not a single one of them that isn't annoying as shit. So with that said, we'll go right into the first trash pack, and I'll try and cover these in as much detail as possible so you don't end up wiping horribly and hating your group members. The first trash pool here is an easy introductory one with just 2 mobs. You have an Initiate of the Rising Sun and a Diving Chakram Spinner. Now, the Chakram Spinners in this instance are one of the more damaging mobs. They'll just throw chakrams at the tank, so they're really annoying to move. And they'll throw down these electrified clouds you can see on screen. Basically, don't stand on the clouds. They'll also throw out this spinning blade that does a half moon and then returns to the caster. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage and it's pretty hard to avoid, but if you can, just do yourselves a favour and avoid some damage there. The other mob in this pack is the Initiate of the Rising Sun. Now, there's a few different healer mobs in this dungeon. This is the first one of them that you'll encounter. And he has various healing based abilities. One of the first ones he does is a sun trinkets he summons. And this is just a totem that appears on the ground. It's a non-interruptible cast. And you have to kill the totem or it will heal all nearby enemies. You can usually stun lock him to stop him doing these totems, or you can just kill the totems. Pretty straightforward. He'll also do a solar heal on his allies, which heals any nearby ally to full health. And it also cannot be interrupted. So basically, if you're nuking something that isn't this guy, he's going to just heal it up. In addition to that, he also has a basic flash heal, which just heals 25% of a target's health. He can cast this one on himself, unlike the solar heal, but it is interruptible. So generally, when one of these is in the pack, you want to kill it first through stuns, to stop it from doing any sort of casting. And the next pull here ramps up the difficulty a little bit. We have another Diving Chakram Spinner. Deal with this one much in the same way as the last one, but in addition to that we have a Blooded Blade Feather and a Whirling Dervish. Now, the Blade Feather just does a basic charge ability that will damage everyone in the way, and he'll do a slash in front of him, so generally it's a good idea to face him away, although the slash is pretty non-threatening in general. The other new mob in this pack is the Whirling Dervish. Like the Blade Feather, they also have a frontal attack. He'll just summon a small tornado that travels forward and damages anyone in the path. Again, it's not very damaging, you can face him away, but ultimately this is not a critical ability. One of the more relevant ones he does is a long cast time spell called Mass Dispel All. It's a 6-second cast and it'll remove any magical effects from all of his allies, so like all your poisons, diseases, your dots, everything like that just gets dispelled. Obviously, being such a long cast time, it's quite easy to interrupt. You can also stun him, you can do knockbacks. I mean, really in this dungeon, the prime thing to remember is just bring AoE stuns, bring single target stuns, because all of these annoying trash abilities can be completely negated just by stunning the mobs and stopping them from doing stuff. One dangerous ability this guy has is the Storm ability. Now, he'll summon a storm over a nearby party member, and it'll inflict nature damage to everyone that's inside the storm. It looks a lot like the Druid Hurricane spell, and it can be quite difficult to notice if you're zoomed in pretty far. If you don't notice it right away, you're probably going to fall over and die horribly because it's really high damaging, so yeah, don't play this dungeon with your character zoomed in too far, or you're going to be in a bad shape. Now, at this point in the video, we did end up building 2 packs together. There's a patrolling pack you can see at the back, which goes from here towards the next trash pack. I don't advise doing this, but since we were a little overgeared, I decided it was going to be okay to just pull them all and AoE them down. Regardless, unless you're in pretty high level gear, I definitely would not recommend doing it this way, because of the Herald of Sunrise in this pack. Now, he's much like the Initiate of the Rising Sun we saw earlier, he's entirely healing focused. He has the same flash heal, the interruptible one that the Initiate had, and he has the same solar heal that will heal an ally to full HP. But he doesn't have the sun trinkets. What he has instead is Solar Zone. Now, he'll put a yellow patch on the ground, and anything that stands inside it will be healed, and they'll gain around 2% of their max HP every second. Doesn't sound like a lot, but with the amount of HP these mobs have and the amount of them that can all stack inside this Solar Zone, yeah, it really adds up. In addition to that, any allies of yours that try and get inside the Solar Zone will be repelled backwards. So your melee are not going to be happy if they can't reach the mobs because of this zone pushing them around. Basically, with these packs, you want to focus this Herald of Sunrise. Stuns, as always, are good here. Stop him getting the solar zones down. If he does get them down, you need to move the mobs. The second thing to consider here is the unmovable mob, which is another diving chakram spinner. If he gets caught in the solar zone, you need to try and move him somehow, like with a Death Knight is a good way to do it. Just grip him out, or use a rogue, get a smoke bomb up. The smoke bomb blocks line of sight, so the chakram spinner is forced to move since he can't reach his enemies. As well as that, we have another blooded blade feather. Deal with that in the same one as the way before. You can face it away if it's convenient to do so. If not, don't worry too much. He'll just charge players, heal up the damage. Ultimately, this guy is not very threatening. Now we've seen a bit of the diving chakram spinner. What we haven't seen is his bigger brother, the soaring chakram spinner. This guy has the same abilities as the diving chakram spinner, but instead of throwing one chakram out in a half moon, he will throw 4 chakrams out, and then they'll return to him in the same half moon style. In addition to that, he has a lightning chakram ability that he'll throw on the ground, and if anyone stands on this, you'll take mega damage. So if you get the lightning chakram on you, plus the storm from the other mob, you can find yourself being pretty much instantly killed. The trash in this place is very unforgiving. If you don't have lots of AoE stuns, there will be times where party members get insta-gibbed, and they'll just think to themselves, what the hell happened? Well, this is what happened. You need to stun stuff. Another mob we see here that is pulled in with the second pack is the Blinding Solar Flare. Now this guy will put a debuff on all of your party members that makes you explode and damage everyone near you. So if you're stacked up, you're all going to damage each other, but if you spread out, it just detonates harmlessly. In addition to that, he'll spam Solar Wrath on the tank, which is just basic nature damage. It doesn't do very much, it's interruptible. Not really a big deal. This guy would be pretty non-threatening if it weren't for his flashbang ability. Now he'll do a 2-second cast time, and at the end of the cast, he will blind anyone who is facing him, and this leaves you disoriented for 3 seconds. Now you can imagine if your tank gets disoriented, you're going to drop all aggro, the mobs are going to run everywhere, they're going to instantly kill someone. Yeah, it's a really big deal. You want someone sitting on the solar flare to interrupt this flashbang, because giving everyone 2-second warning to turn away isn't always convenient. And generally in pugs, people don't even know how to avoid this ability. If you know to turn away, sure, great, it's fine, but if you don't, and you don't trust your group members to do so, again, make sure he's interrupted or make sure he's stunned. Recurring theme here to stun everything. Now this pack also comes with 2 smaller mobs, the Life Pact Familiar and the Solar Familiar. They have very low HP, and they each have their own abilities that you need to deal with. The Life Pact Familiar will defend the Herald of Sunrise, and if the Herald is about to die, the Life Pact Familiar will sacrifice itself to restore the Herald of Sunrise to full HP. Basically, you want to kill the Life Pact Familiar before nuking the Herald. It goes down in a couple of seconds if everyone focuses it. It's much less HP than the rest of the mobs. The other familiar is the Solar Familiar. Now he'll channel an empowerment on one of the mobs here. It just powers them up, makes them do more damage. It can be pretty deadly if combined with one of the damaging mobs like the Chakram Spinners or the Chakram Masters. So if you see him channeling on that, you want to interrupt him. Or again, you want to just use AoE stuns. Upon death for the Solar Familiar, he'll try and cast Flashbang. It's the same one that the Solar Flare does, just face away and interrupt it. Interestingly, if the Solar Familiar is stunned at the time of his death, he will not cast his Flashbang. Again, another reason why AoE stuns are so powerful in this dungeon. Now moving on from these tough packs here, we get an easy one before the first boss. In this pack is a group of lowborn Arakoa and a Skyreach Overlord. Now the lowborn Arakoa have much less health than the Overlord, and the Overlord himself will also damage the lowborn Arakoa. He'll clip their wings, and it'll increase the damage they deal, and their attack speed, but it also damages them over time. So generally if you're AoEing, the Arakoa will die first, and the Skyreach Overlord is left by himself. Generally this pack isn't very damaging. There can be a little bit of tank damage, but none of the abilities really do very much at all. So just clean them up quickly and move on to the first boss. So here we reach the first boss. Now mechanically this guy is not very complicated, but he does have some very highly damaging abilities. The first of these you should be concerned with is a fan of blades. He's going to fire out chakrams in all directions, and he's going to hit people and leave a bleed debuff on them. And this is completely unavoidable. Even if you're a dwarf, you can't stone farm this off, which makes my DK very sad. Something for your healer to be concerned with, just heal it up. Use some small defensive cooldowns if you need to, but this just adds a constant source of damage for the whole encounter. The other ability this guy uses is the Piercing Rush. Much like the Bloodfeather mobs we saw in the previous packs, he just charges the target, deals heavy damage, and also damages anyone who's in the way. You need to spread out because of this, and you need to make sure your melee players don't get hit when he's on his way out. One of the main mechanics in the fight here is the wind walls. He'll drop a spinning chakram on one location, and it's going to project wind walls out in a 180 degree line. They'll spin around slowly and damage anyone that they touch or passes through them. Now, the mega version of this wind wall ability is the one called Four Winds. He'll throw a larger chakram directly into the middle of the room, and he'll summon large wind walls. Now, these go at 180 degrees both ways in a cross fashion, and they spin around slowly like the wind walls, but they take up the entire platform. Just find yourself a safe quadrant and move with it, but beware to also avoid the wind walls during this time as they continue to spin and can often leave you squashed for space. One ability this guy has that I believe may be bugged is his Spinning Blade. He's supposed to throw the chakram out in the half moon style that we saw in the chakram spinners previously. Now he does cast this at the start of the encounter, but after the first cast he never seems to cast it again. So yeah, I don't really know what's wrong with that, if it's supposed to be doing this or if it's just broken, but you only have to avoid it once and after that it goes away. Now the final ability he has is the Solar Beam. He's going to power up the focusing iris on top of the spire, and he'll just direct a beam of sunlight towards a party member. They have to run away from it, it'll take damage if it touches them, and it'll scorch the ground and leave fire patches. Now you need to be careful not to completely block the way for your other players, because you're going to be zoned by the wind wall and the Four Winds. So if you don't place these abilities correctly, you can find yourself with no space. And if you've got nowhere to move on this fight, it usually culminates in you dying in a horrible mess of chakrams, wind and fire. So after the first boss falls, you move across this platform, move up the stairs here, and you have a choice of either a left fork or a right fork. Now they both lead to the same place, but the pack of trash on the right has 2 healers in it, so I do not recommend taking the right hand trash pack. You're just giving yourself a load of unnecessary pain. Instead, we ought to go for the left hand trash pack. Now in this trash pack is another variation of the healer mob, the Adept of the Dawn. Really, this mob doesn't do anything different than the Initiate of the Rising Sun we saw at the start of the dungeon. I don't know why they have different names. There's a few instances of this in the dungeon where mobs do the same thing, have all the same abilities as something else, yet have a different name. Honestly, it feels a little bit confusing, just completely needlessly. So I'm not sure what Blizzard were thinking there, if they just wanted to make it more complicated, just to confuse people by trash, but I don't really think it's such a great design. Regardless, Adept of the Dawn crafts the Sun Trinket, does the Flash Heal, does the Solar Heal, and does the Channeled Solar Shower, which heals every mob around him. Just focus him down, use your AoE stuns, don't let him heal stuff. The second new mob in this pool, which has 2 of them here, is the Driving Gale Callers. Now, these mobs just have the same abilities as the Whirling Dervish that we saw earlier. Another instance of a mob having a different name, but the same abilities. Who knows why? It's a mystery. Someone call Scooby-Doo in the gang. Anyway, Forward Frontal Tornado does some damage, not a big deal, and the Master Spell. The Master Spell is a bit more of a big deal, but if you're using AoE stuns it shouldn't impact you too much. Also in this pack is the Chakram Master that we saw earlier. Fortunately his name is not changed, so we know what he does already. He's going to drop the Electrified Chakrams, which are super bad to stand in, and he's going to shoot out the 4 Chakrams that do the half moon formation and come back. If you can avoid them, do your best to do so, but you should prioritise focusing the Electrified Chakram instead. Now the entirely new mob in this pack is the Dread Raven. You can pull this guy separately, and I absolutely recommend doing so. We only pulled him with this group because it's our challenge mode tactic that we use, and I'm very used to it, and I was just sort of on autopilot here. So I went ahead and pulled them trash back with the Dread Raven. This Dread Raven is possibly the most annoying enemy ever conceived. Whoever made this Raven at Blizzard really needs to just be kicked out the door. Preferably with a lot of force so they don't come back. But yeah, if you have the misfortune of having to deal with this Dread Raven, you'll need to know what it does so you're equipped to deal with it. Now the Dread Raven does some pretty heavy melee tank damage, and he has a very high HP pool. which is why I recommend taking him by himself. But the most annoying thing he does is a knockback, and it's not just a regular knockback, it's a knockback that hits everyone in front of him. But before he does the knockback, he'll also pick up the tank and throw him over his back. So you think you've got your back against the wall, but suddenly he throws you over his back for a good distance, and then charges you for even more distance. Now, because of how unpredictable this can be, you can find yourself getting knocked into more mobs, you can get knocked off the platform, you can just be thrown into locations where your camera goes crazy. Yeah, they're really, really frustrating. Not to mention the fact that their hitbox is incredibly small, so if you try and turn around or make them face a different way, they're likely just to run through you and face in a direction you didn't want, and then they just throw you over the back and charge you, and suddenly you're off the edge and dead, and the rest of the mobs are running riot around killing everyone. Another reason why I recommend pulling him by himself. Actually, I quite often pull him into the first boss room because there's a lot of space to be thrown around. There's no other mobs. You can just get tossed around, have your party members nuke the mob down. But yeah, these things suck big time. Be very cautious dealing with them. So after that Hell on Earth trash pack, you move up the stairs and we have a Skyreach Archaeologist here. This guy has no HP, none of his abilities matter, just kill him, he's not a big deal. After he's dead, the next boss will activate. The next boss is Arachnath, the Construct of the Sun. Now this guy is tough, he's one of the hardest 5-man bosses there is. When he was first released, it was actually quite popular for groups to use 2 healers on this boss. You know, if you're using 2 healers on a 5-man, then this guy means business. Now as a tank, one of the main abilities you want to watch out for here is the smash. He'll either do a left smash or a right smash. He'll raise one arm up into the air and smash in that location. So whichever side you see him smashing on, just move to the opposite side or you'll take very heavy damage. The next mechanic he has is Burst. Now Burst just deals AoE fire damage to everyone in the room, and it increases in intensity every time. You should be looking at killing this boss by 3 stacks, maybe 4 stacks. Any more than that and you're going to have people start to die and it's going to get really painful. So yeah, just high DPS is a priority. I do recommend saving your heroism or your bloodlust for this boss and not using it on the first boss, just because he needs to die very fast or the damage gets way out of control. But Burst is not the only source of damage. You might have noticed there are these light beams coming in from all directions. Now what will happen here is a light beam will fire from the roof above into one of these small robotic constructs around the area, and the construct will reflect the light beam onto the boss. Now if these light beams contact the boss, they'll heal him for a large amount of HP every second. You can't really out damage this. You need to block these light beams by having players stand on them. Unfortunately for you, players standing in the light beam are granted no such luxury of healing, instead you'll take constant fire damage over time. And it's a pretty heavy amount of damage as well. There's only 2 beams fortunately, unlike on challenge mode where there's 3, but taking heavy damage from the beam and then comboing into a burst can leave you dead. So if you're soaking one of these beams, be wary of the burst timer and be ready to use the defensive cooldown to prevent yourself from dying. Sometimes you get lucky and the 2 constructs next to each other will activate, and you can have your tank soak both of the beams as they converge into a pretty close location before reaching the boss. If you can do this, it's great. Just stand in both as a tank, pop a large cooldown, don't move for smashes or you'll make the beams contact him, and just eat everything. It's a lot of damage, but it prevents a lot on your group as well, and with a lot of cooldown usage then it can be very beneficial. Ultimately this boss is just one where you want to blow everything and kill him before he kills you. If you're spending too much time, you're going to end up dead. After this boss is done, move up more stairs, continue slowly ascending the spire, and run into yet more new trash mobs. These are the Skyreach Sun Talons, and these mobs are pretty tough. You can see at this point I'm desperately searching through my guild bank looking for armor potions, and unfortunately I find none. But yeah, that's because I realised how tough these mobs are. Now they come in packs of 2, and you can tank them sort of, but they'll fixate people, and they'll chase them instead. And they do a lot of damage if they hit the fixated person, and they give you a debuff that increases damage taken. So generally you want to lock these down with things like more AoE stuns. If you have a druid, Ursul's Vortex is great. If you have a hunter, Binding Arrow's also great. Just stop them moving as much as you can. Knockbacks from an elemental shaman like Thunderstorm, or from a druid like Typhoon. great to stop them reaching you. They don't have a lot of HP, but they're not super trivial either. Now at this point, I just want to be the big dick tank and pull everything, so I pull both of these and the pack behind it, which I definitely do not recommend in a pug group. You will 100% wipe if you do this. But I know that we overgear this, and I know that our warrior has the Blade Storm and Recklessness ready, so he's ready to blow everything up. So we pull both of these. We AoE them down. We're using our AoE stuns to stop the fixate mobs from pulling onto more stuff. And yeah, I suppose you could pull both of these if you think you're confident that you just have lots of AoE big damage cooldowns, but generally it's a pretty bad idea. One thing to note is if you have an army of the dead, like a Death Knight DPS or a Death Knight tank, it's pretty good at tanking them because they'll fixate on the army. We didn't have, but Pally cooldowns were strong, so I figured I'd just take it, and it turned out okay, but if you're in a pug group, exercise a little bit more caution. Now the third trash pack that you don't see much of here because we just AoE'd it all down together consists of a Skyreach Raven Whisperer and his Dread Raven Hatchlings. Now he's going to try and cast Excite on the Dread Raven Hatchlings, which just makes them fixate on a party member. It's not interruptible, but it is stunnable. As you can tell, it's a theme in this dungeon. It's not really a big deal if one of them fixates though. Just have the person run into melee so you can continue to cleave. The Dread Raven Hatchlings themselves will also try and attach themselves to your party members. They'll just sit on their head, they'll stop doing anything at all. You can actually run around and this bird just sits on your head for the whole dungeon. It never detaches itself. Kinda comical actually. But any damage done to the bird whilst it's on your head also gets reflected 50% to you. So if you do decide to kill the bird that's on your player's head, rather than just letting them have a pet, then just go easy on the DPS. Unless you're feeling particularly maniacal and you want to actually kill them, in which case use things like Touch of Death. So after this mad menagerie of birds is dealt with, you move on to the next boss, who happens to be a bird, Rukran. Now, if you've been in a pug group for Skyreach, you will know this boss. Pugs are not good at this boss. As a tank, something you have to be concerned with is the Pierce Armor ability. It's a small cast time. You can tell when he'll do it because he's got an energy bar that reaches 100. He'll try and pierce your armor, and it will leave a debuff on you that increases damage taken from further pierce armors. Now you definitely do not want to get this debuff because pierce armor alone with no debuffs hits very hard. You can avoid this by using any of your active mitigation abilities. If you're a paladin, you can use Shield of the Righteous. If you're a warrior, you can use your shield block or your shield barrier. If you're a DK, you can use Ruin Tap or Death Strike. As a monk, you want to use Elusive Brew. Guard used to work, but in a recent patch it stopped working. I don't know if this is a bug or if it's intentional, but it actually makes this boss quite hard for monk tank, so just be wary of that. As a druid, just pop your Savage Defense. The other ability this boss has is the Summon Solar Flare. He'll summon a small solar flare that looks like a tiny phoenix, sort of like the solar familiars we saw before. These will fixate on a party member and just chase them down slowly. They can be stunned, and they can be slowed down with things like Earthbind Totem, but they cannot be rooted. If these manage to reach the player, they will detonate, killing themselves and doing damage to all players nearby. Now you can kill these birds, and when they die, they'll also do the AoE fire burst around them. And if any of these ash piles that you see on the ground are hit by this fire burst, it will respawn the solar flare and spawn a second one from this ash pile. For this reason, killing these flares in the appropriate location is very, very critical to this fight. And in fact, in challenge mode and in mythic difficulty, the ash piles are packed so tightly that we actually opt just to use a tactic where we don't kill any of the solar flares for the entire fight. We just kite them around, and the ranged players just cry about not being able to cast and cry about Aspect of the Fox and so on, but you just kind of have to do it. Killing this boss fast isn't crucial, so if they're kiting 100 solar flares, then who really cares? Another method of dealing with solar flares is to stun them immediately when they spawn and kill them in the duration of the stun. The spawn location for a solar flare is always a safe place to kill it, as there are no other ash piles nearby. If you have something that's a long duration instant stun, like the Paladin stun or the Rogue stun, as we have here but decided not to use because, we're dumb or something, These are good. You can kill the solar flares before they move and make your ranged players a little bit happier. Now at 60% and 20%, the boss will go into the Quills phase. He'll start channeling a long spell and he'll deal damage to anyone in line of sight of him. This damage will leave a debuff on you that makes you take increased damage from Quill's spell. So you can stand out and take a few ticks and you'll be okay, but if you stand in it for too long, you're probably going to die. As a tank, if you have some self-healing, like if you're a DK or a Pally, then you can stand in this and you won't die. But as other players, you want to get out unless you have an immunity, like Hand of Protection. There is a conveniently placed pillar in the middle of this room that you can line of sight with though, so that's pretty easy to handle. So yeah, this boss only has a few abilities. The primary focus is dealing with the solar flares, and you either do this by killing them as fast as possible, or not killing them at all. You should discuss with your group beforehand to decide which tactic you want to use, because a mixture of both will just lead to them being killed slowly, and this is absolutely the worst thing you can do. After this boss dies, there's a small wind gauntlet to run through. Now, I actually looted the feather, because I was on the quest from the inn, so you can see me just leisurely jumping around the wind here, not really a care in the world. One thing to note that's important about this wind is that if you get to the end first, beware of people swap blasting you, and if you don't get to the end first, then make sure you swap blast the person who did.
You can shadow step on me if you want. Oh!
He likes it.
Oh! No, that's cold.
What did you do? So blast you?
Can you hurry up already, Brutal?
Oh my god. Slow level. Yeah.
At the top here is another basic trash pack. All of these mobs we've seen before know how to deal with, except for the Solar Magnifier. But really he's not too deadly. All he'll do is the same thing as the Solar Familiar does. He'll channel an Empower on a nearby enemy and buff up their damage. If he puts this on something like the Blood Feather, he can charge and one-shot people. So perhaps you want to interrupt this or just stun him, but really he's a pretty low priority target. What you should be doing in this pack is just killing the Life Pack Familiar, and then immediately nuking the Adept so he can't heal people. Pretty standard in Skyreach, honestly. Kill the Familiars, kill the healer. Now if you couldn't get enough of the Dread Ravens, then rejoice, because there's another one here. He patrols all the way around this ring, and you have to be careful when fighting the previous trash bags. If you go too close to the door, you can actually pull him in as well, and you can get yourself tossed off the edge. One good way I deal with this bird is just tank him in this doorway and go left to right and just get yourself knocked against the walls each time. Your other players will love you for not having to move, and you yourself won't be knocked off the edge or knocked back down to Arachnath's room. After this Raven and his mighty health pool finally falls, we can either go left or right. Now, on the right hand side there is a new type of robot, and he just puts a protective barrier on people, but generally I opt to go left because I find the left hand pack is a little bit easier to handle. On the left, it's all mobs we've seen before. The Chakram Master will put out some big damage, and the Whirling Dervish will try and cyclone people and just do the dispel. General rule of thumb, kill the Life Pack Familiar first, then kill the Adept of the Dawn. After that you can AoE stuff, perhaps with a bit of focus on the Chakram Master just to reduce the damage output he's doing, because these Chakram Masters are deadly. And there's one final enemy here before the last boss. We didn't actually kill it in this video because we just used the Shroud of Concealment from the Rogue to skip it, but he's not too hard to deal with. It's the Grand Defense construct, and you can probably see from my tidy plates that he has many segments. All of these segments share HP, so if you have classes with good cleave abilities, such as Rogue Blade Flurry or Ellie Shaman Chain Lightning, then you can kill this guy pretty fast. Now he'll put a burn debuff on the target. After a short time he'll start firing a laser at you that deals fire damage over time. And he'll also do a slam ability which damages everyone in your group. Now he's kind of like the Arachnath boss, in which that you'll get targeted by the laser, you'll take burn damage, and then he'll slam and spike you. You can actually be killed by this if your health's low enough. So if you're being burned, just be wary and use a cooldown when he does slam. It has a cast time, you can tell when it's coming. Ultimately though, he's not very challenging, and with appropriate AoE DPS he dies very quickly. So here we are then, at the top of the Great Spire, final boss time. This boss isn't actually that difficult compared to everything you've dealt with in this dungeon so far. If you can get this far, you can probably kill this guy with relative ease. One of his main tank damaging abilities is his Solar Burst. It's a long cast time, and at the end of the cast time it deals fire damage. It can be reflected if you have a warrior, or you have a shaman for grounding totem, and you can also Dark Sim it as a DK. So yeah, it's a pretty good idea to let this go through if you have these combinations. Otherwise it's interruptible. Not really a very dangerous, easy mechanic to deal with. Throughout the fight, the boss will also do the same thing that the first boss did and activate the focusing arrows at the top of the spire. You'll focus the beam of sunlight. It's exactly the same mechanic as the first boss, just run around, place your patches of fire. Now this boss likes to summon adds as well. He has 2 types. The first type of add he'll summon is the Cast Down, which summons the Solar Zealot. Normally, these Solar Zealots will pick a player, and they'll grab that player and move towards the edge of the platform in an attempt to drop them off. If you've done Lich King, it's the same mechanic that the Valkyrs here use. One interesting thing to note is that you can completely break these Solar Zealots if you stun them before they grab someone. Now, in this footage you can see I use Hammer of Justice to stun the bird in the air, and it just flies harmlessly down and wanders around. Literally does nothing, doesn't melee attack, doesn't grab anyone. The warrior we have in the group wasn't really very familiar with this and the way to break them, so you can see him sort of running around a bit confused. Maybe some lingering effects from the swap blaster, deadly radiation or something. I don't know. Either way, he soon got the hint and went back to the boss. The second type of add the boss will summon is the Skyreach shield constructs. If you have a hunter, you can freeze trap these and you don't have to deal with them, but strangely other types of CC don't seem to work. I've tried Paralysis on my monk, and we had a rogue try Blind as well. It just gives you an immune message, but somehow freeze trap works. A little bit inconsistent, but anyway, if you can't freeze trap these, you'll have to get them into melee range and interrupt them as much as possible, because they'll try and put a shield on the boss, which reduces damage the boss takes. So these are priority to kill, stop them shielding, just nuke them down. Besides that, there's not really any other abilities. The difficulty here comes from the fact that the boss summons the Solar Zealots and the shield constructs fairly rapidly. If you don't keep on top of the ad spawns, you can find yourself getting overwhelmed. You're trying to DPS Zealots and the shield constructs are shielding them. Meanwhile, the boss is blasting your tank, people are getting dropped off the edge. It's really about picking the correct target and killing it quickly and efficiently. If you can do these things, this boss is actually one of the easiest ones in the dungeon, and you'll soon find yourself greeted with the mythic loot that you so want. So thanks for watching this Skyreach dungeon guide. If you managed to get to the end, good job. It's a lot of detail on this one. Much of the Skyreach trash is very deadly. I felt like I had to cover it in great depth just so you know what you're going up against. But short version, use AoE stuns and rage at ravens. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.